What is up guys, it's your boy Solheim here, back with another Classic WoW video. Well, this one is just for Classic WoW as a whole, and today we're talking about a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for quite a while, and I don't really know why I haven't been talking about it recently, but we're talking about TBC Classic. And not only are we talking about TBC Classic, I also want to watch a video on TBC Classic. Now for this, I found a video today that I really want to watch, and it's why do players want Burning Crusade back. Now, I'm one of those who've been saying this for several years now, that, well, first of all, when we transitioned from TBC to Wrath, I found it really weird that we didn't have any TBC era servers, and ever since then, I still find it really weird that we haven't had any TBC reboot, like a TBC Fresh or a Fresh kind of server, based on the TBC pre-patch, or like TBC, leveling through Classic WoW with TBC changes to TBC experience rate, TBC pre-patch leveling all the way from level 1, it's great, and being able to play Blood Elves, being able to play Draenei, it's just a good time, and I would love personally, on a personal level, to re-experience TBC. I did not fully take advantage of the TBC Classic expansion, and I would love to go back and give it one more try. Do some more raiding, do some actual PvP this time. There's so many things that I didn't do the first time that I would love to do this time as well. So let's take a look at this video. I'll be reacting to it as well. There will be a link to the video down below. Go show the original creator some love, subscribe to him, like on his video, and if you want to leave a like on this one, feel free to do that as well, really helps me out. But either way, I'm going to turn this video into a longer one, so if you want to watch the entire thing without my commentary, feel free to. Either way, let's get on with it and let's watch the video.
So, a few months back we spoke about Burning Crusade Classic and the likelihood of if we would ever see it again. A chat coming off the time when we were still waiting to get into Cataclysm Classic, and many players were jumping off the bandwagon as we said goodbye to Wrath of the Lich King with no era realms in sight. And whilst personally for me I've been enjoying Cataclysm Classic and I'm looking forward to the war within for retail, many players are still out there shouting into what feels like the abyss, saying they still want Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King back, to return with era servers similar to how we've seen vanilla. And to summarise previously what we spoke about, I mentioned that if we are to see Burning Crusade return, I thought it would likely be the start of 2025, when Cataclysm Classic is pretty much over as we'll be in Dragon Soul by then, and probably waiting for Mists of Pandaria Classic if that's on the way, with Season of Discovery potentially coming into its last few months where we'll certainly be venturing around endgame, and the War Within will have a solid footing in retail and been going for a fair while at that point, as it is due to be released in September 2024. For me this makes sense timing wise, as it'll probably be a low tide of content for each of the main versions of WoW that are around at that point, but specifically Cataclysm Classic. And releasing Burning Crusade era servers stands the chance not only to retain players who might become bored, but to also get back some players in the meantime. Now for me that makes logical sense and is such a sensible timeline and decision, it almost certainly won't be happening. But more interestingly, why is it that so many players want specifically Burning Crusade back still? Well, let's take a look. But just before we jump in, feel free to like and subscribe if you're new here, as it helps me out a bunch. So thanks very much indeed. Now, let's get on with it. So I think the first overall point to Burning Crusade is that the expansion itself became...
You know, I'm gonna agree with the first thing he said here, talking about when this could be coming out, if it comes out. It would be 2025, I think, and either the first half, or like, let's just say a year from now, halfway through the next year. And the reason for that is that, first of all, the War Within would have a really solid foothold, and Season of Discovery would probably be over by then. And I think there's a couple of things that have to come into place here for this to become a thing. Because Blizzard, if they're going to launch this, they need to be very sure about the success, or it needs to be a massive community push to make them consider this to be a thing. So the War Within needs to have a solid footholding to where Classic players don't want to give it a try, or they have like been playing it for a while, they're not that hype anymore. Let's just say over half a year into the new expansion. Additionally, there has to be a content lull in Cataclysm. There also has to be either a content lull in Season of Discovery, or the whole season has to be over. Now, we already have a timeline for Cataclysm here, that we're going to be in Dragon Soul in January, February, or something like that, right? So it has a 1 year lifespan, technically, pretty much. And I think about 2 months into the last content patch of Cataclysm, people are going to be bored. of Cataclysm, and they'll be looking to do something else until Mists of Pandaria comes out, in which case, if we have a lot of time between the last patch of Cataclysm Classic and Mists of Pandaria Classic, which, first of all, we don't know if it's coming yet, but I do think so, and we don't know when. If there's a lot of time between the last patch of Cataclysm and the first one of MOP, that should be the time where fresh TBC servers should be coming out. Anywhere until then, we simply have too much content and too many things planned, and you don't want to spread the Classic WoW team too thin. But in that time period, let's just call it 4 to 5 months, where there's nothing happening in Classic WoW, Season of Discovery is either over, or content lull, and then nothing happening in Cataclysm because we're on the last patch, and they're working a little bit on MOP as well. There's just nothing happening. That would be the perfect time to give us fresh TBC, to keep us occupied while they work on Mists of Pandaria. So if it's coming, that would be my guess, that exact period, giving us something fun to do while they work on MOP Classic.
In what you'd probably call nostalgia justified, once we went through it again in Classic WoW. And by that it means through re-experiencing the expansion so many years later after its original release. It wasn't just a longing for the past that held everyone's loving memories of the game. Classic Burning Crusade simply confirmed all those long-term beliefs about how great the game itself actually was. I.e., the nostalgia for Burning Crusade wasn't solely coming from the good times and the people you played with, although that obviously is a big part of it. The nostalgia was justified by the fact the overall experience of the expansion and its content was actually just very good, outside of the people I played with, nor the fact that I'm trying to regain some sense of long lost captured youth. And with Classic WoW now starting to get further away from what many people believe to be traditional Classic WoW post Wrath of the Lich King, they believe they should have full-time access to Burning Crusade in the same way we do vanilla. In WoW we speak a lot about how the vibe of content can greatly affect your experience.
Yeah, and especially because we have so many Classic era servers, why not give us a couple of TBC era servers as well? They're already they already keep so many Classic era servers alive. They definitely have the resources to give us a TBC era server as well. Just even turning one of the Classic era servers into a TBC era server, I don't know, there seems to be nothing stopping them if you ask me, but then again, I'm not a game developer. The only thing maybe stopping them is that they want to have a hype for fresh TBC for a future announcement. The less we have access to it now, the more hype it is when it comes out. So I would say, once again, the content lull between the last patch of Cataclysm and MOP Classic would be where they would and should announce something like this.
Experience of the expansion in contrast with gameplay. For example, at the start of Dragonflight, many people stated the vibe was simply off due to the rather friendly themed content and aspects we were seeing. This was then solved by going through the next two raids, Aberrus and Emirdrasil, by fighting giant monsters that were made of fire, which put things right back onto track for Dragonflight. And with Burning Crusade both in the expansion's name and the very first few moments you experience in the expansion, the vibe is hit right on the money, as you finally step through the huge dark portal to unveil a new world, only to be greeted by the Burning Legion's pit commander, leading an assault on the portal with, you guessed it, giant monsters made of fire. Based in Hellfire Peninsula, a barren wasteland filled with evil orcs, wild creatures, demons, and the iconic Fell Reavers. And yeah, there's lots of fire as well. And this feeling of exploration and experience was key to vanilla WoW, where you did feel like a small adventurer heading into a very dangerous and unknown land, realizing that not only the world but the universe that WoW was set in now is far bigger than you. We had a new world that felt open, diverse, with lots of detail, yet still didn't feel entirely overwhelming or over bloated, which is a theme that people regularly complain about now in WoW. It carried through the existing themes of vanilla that we loved and simply painted them in a different cover, bringing to life some of those scenes we got in the original Warcraft games, which at the point of BC's release wasn't all that long ago. To put it simply, Burning Crusade feels like pretty solid Warcraft, and this vibe ran throughout the content we were able to then experience in this new world also. So visually, the expansion looked great as noted, which worked well with a pretty good story drawn as a continuation from original Warcraft, with iconic characters such as Illidan and Kil'jaeden to make a fairly engaging and consistent leveling and endgame experience. As a result, we had some of the best zones in WoW's history to level in. Personally for me, expansion wise, the best leveling experience maybe only tied by...
You know, I agree. My leveling experience in TBC Classic, it is one of the best leveling experiences I've had. Maybe apart from Classic WoW, the OG, like when it came out 2019, but that was a long process. For TBC, I was able to level 60 to 70 in one sitting, and it was just such a crazy experience. I've thoroughly enjoyed every moment, and Sangremarsh, such a cool zone. Like, I didn't think I would enjoy Sangormarsh as much as I did, because on retail I usually just go into Sangormarsh, do about 10 quests, then head to Nagrand, but this time I had to actually do Sangormarsh, and as someone who's never played on a TBC private server or anything like that, this was a first for me, and Sangormarsh, I thoroughly really enjoyed that zone. I leveled 10 more alts to level 70 in TBC, and every single time I did all of Sangormarsh. I just really enjoyed Sangormarsh, and then obviously I enjoyed Nagrand as well. Nagrand is my favorite zone, I think. Sangormarsh might be number 2, but all the zones are so closely together when it comes to my ranking. The only one that I maybe didn't like that much is Shadowmoon Valley, but yeah, every other zone, like literally every other zone, I thoroughly enjoyed. Even Blade's Edge was about 10 times more fun and more engaging than I remembered it being, based on my own experience in the past. It was just a crazy good time. Leveling in TBC, big thumbs up, 10 out of 10 experience, would experience again.
Wrath, with Shadowmoon Valley being one of my favourite zones in all of WoW. And I think consistency is a big thing for Burning Crusade from level 6.
There we go, the duality of mankind. Me, I enjoyed every zone, and like Nagrand number 1, Sangormarsh number 2, and the one I maybe didn't like was Shadowmoon Valley. For him it was the complete opposite. He really enjoyed Shadowmoon Valley, so there we go. Yeah.
60 to 70. It really doesn't feel like it slacks off or there are any zones I can't be bothered going through. Each area has its own unique style that still somehow ties into one another and makes a coherent leveling experience. And the dungeons we get to experience are regularly still loved by players. For example, the area in Terokar Forest where there's a whole tribunal of dungeons like Orkanai Crypts, Mana Tombs and Sethek Halls. Or Hellfire Citadel where we have Ramparts, Blood Furnace, Shattered Halls and of course Magtheridon's lair below. And that's before we even mention the goofy yet very sinister Karazhan, the epic face-off with Illidan Black Temple, or even the excellent end to the expansion in Sunwell Plateau. There's a great cadence of content to keep you engaged from 60 to 70, and well, the endgame certainly doesn't disappoint either. It's made for some of WoW's most iconic content, and when revisiting it, it still lived up to the hype. Even in retail, when I use Chromie Time to level up a new character, I regularly choose Burning Crusade to spam alts, just because of how great the dungeon design is in Burning Crusade. And in this great progression of content, it only works because the gameplay of BC feels very true to Classic, where we see the progression of classes beyond vanilla to give us that extra oomph. Much similar to why many people love the initial changes we got in Season of Discovery, it feels like vanilla WoW but with a bit of extra spice. Yet there is still enough gaps in each class to make it seem like you had to patch up those holes in raids through differentiating who was in your raid, making each class feel vulnerable and valuable at the same time in a group setting. And much like vanilla, gear feels to have weight and keep relevance for longer throughout your experience and isn't always instantly replaced. Although it isn't the same rate as vanilla, it's still present for a lot of BC and your character still takes time to build up, something that slowly began to disappear towards the end of Wrath, i.e. your time sunken into the game feels rewarded back in many ways, and your gear really is earned for the majority of the time. However, as always, we have to touch on some of the issues that Burning Crusade era realms would bring with them. Now, for some people, they don't like the fact Burning Crusade can make Azeroth feel pretty irrelevant, or those that claim the addition of flying mounts killed the game, but realistically, if you're hyped for Burning Crusade realms, I'd guess these aren't much of an issue for you. But I think it's more the long-term challenges the era realms would face that see the main issues. I mean, if we take a look at vanilla era, it really does go through heavy bouts of either high popularity or being a ghost town. But that does come with the nature of era realms being available for other low tides of content during WoW's current content. And it's pretty much era realms' jobs to fill in the gaps when there's not much else to be doing in WoW, so I wouldn't worry about this part too much. But this does bring about issues that we see in vanilla, like the absolutely horrendous economy at times with auction house prices. Or what happens when people stop running lower level vanilla content and the shouts for Dungeon Finder come into play? Are these just ignored? Or would the era realms be original Burning Crusade or BC with changes? And additions for the long-term health of the game, like the initial group finder system we had prior to Dungeon Finder? Or would players want 100% original BC experience? And speaking of experience,
I would want to see TBC Classic without the paid level boost, and without the, you know, the level 58 boost we had, and the Deluxe Edition mount. Just give me regular TBC. TBC Classic with none of the cash shop mechanic stuffs, nothing cash shop. No cash shop, no WoW token, no level boost, TBC Classic. Give me that and I will be really happy. I don't need to see any changes other than that, to be fair. And yeah, I think it would be great. I think this is something that a lot of people are asking for. And I've seen several videos in the last probably week/month of people asking for TBC back. So let me know in the comments, do you want TBC back? Would you play TBC if we got TBC?
What about those who want Burning Crusade but with higher experience rates? And if the community votes for that, does that turn other players away? How do we fix faction balancing? Would it be like Season of Discovery to avoid crazy BG queue times? And if servers aren't maintained, people will say the realms will be left for dead and no one wants them. So whilst there's demand for servers, it's not quite as simple as just turning them on and letting everyone have a go. Overall, I think the shouts for Burning Crusade and Wrath era realms are still warranted and should be fulfilled likely in 2025 if there's any chance of it happening. Like all versions of WoW, Burning Crusade does have its issues, but for me and many other players, in the balance of things, the good massively outweighs the bad. But even some of those less appealing factors are what play into the charm of it, and the original trilogy of WoW. I think BC can't just be labelled as people want it back for nostalgia anymore. People got it back, played it and said, yep, it's still one of the best versions of WoW we've ever seen, and we want it back on a permanent and available basis like vanilla, and we would have a truly dedicated audience who would cement themselves in Burning Crusade consistently, in between those patches where players are off either busy in retail WoW or whatever the latest iteration of Classic is. And even if there was no maintenance on the realms, we've seen repeatedly that dedicated Classic fans do organise their own events. Events that have come into actual existence, now hosted by Blizzard, just like Classic Hardcore, or the recent organisation of player Fresh Realms in vanilla, as Blizzard isn't hosting any new Fresh Realms. So overall, I understand why players want Burning Crusade back, and I'd love to see some era realms set up in the near future. But what do you think? Is there any reasons I left out why you like Burning Crusade? Or any reasons as to why we shouldn't see its return? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. As always though, take care out there, and I'll see you on the next one. As always, if you're new here, feel free to like and
Alright, there we go, that's the video. Once again, I'll be linking it down below. I think it's a massive L from Blizzard not having, well, Wrath era and TBC era servers, because right now, if you want to play Classic WoW, like Classic era, vanilla WoW, you can. If you want to play Cataclysm, like on a Blizzard server, you can play vanilla WoW on a Blizzard server. You can play Cataclysm on a Blizzard server. You can play Hardcore, Season of Discovery. You can even play retail. And you can try Mr. Pandaria kind of through the whole remix thing on retail as well. But if you want to play TBC, you cannot do that on a Blizzard server. If you want to play Wrath, you cannot do that on a Blizzard server. So those people, they have to go back to private servers. They have no other options to play that on a Blizzard server. Blizzard wants people to play on their servers, in which case, give them the option to. That's basically going to be my closeout statement here. If they want people to play on your servers, give them the option. Why not? TBC era and Wrath era has to happen, and I'm hoping it happens sooner rather than later. Either way, once again, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I would love to see some feedback on this, and that's pretty much the video for today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, leave a like if you did, and thank you so much for watching as always, I really do appreciate it. I'll see you again in the next video very soon.